Far South. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. Tonight I would like to welcome Councillors Deputy Mayor Thorpe, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jessup, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Gibson, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Burgess and Councillor Rozak. Would you like to introduce your staff, please?
Sure. Executive staff here tonight. We have General Counsel Matthew Grimsey, Director of People and Corporate Patty Johnson, Director of Community and Place Lyle Ground, and Acting Director Infrastructure and Assets Anthony Wicks. We've also got our support staff, Innovation and Technology Project Officer Connor Watson, our Digital Platforms Officer Sheridan Kuzlin, and Executive Assistant Olga Barth.
Thank you. There's no apologies tonight. There's no one on a leave of absence tonight, and we have no one absent. Councillors, do anyone wish to declare an interest? And I have one here. Would you like to read that out, or do you want me to, Councillor Jessup?
Sorry, mate. Yes, I'm just saying I have a conflict of interest on 10.1.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Do I have any other? No. Thank you. So 4.001/25, recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council on the 12th of December 2024 as circulated be confirmed? Councillor Gibson and a seconder. Councillor Thorpe. Do any councillors wish to report any changes?
No, no.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. No legislative items tonight? Urgent matters?
No.
Okay, I have a couple of announcements to make, and I would just like to have a special thank you to the South Yorm Community Health Association for the acknowledgement of the goods that they donated to the Dover Medical Practice. They no longer are an association, so the money they had in the bank, they bought equipment. So, and thanks to Jen Hathaway, she presented that to the hospital, so that's to the practice, so that's good. If you're travelling on the Esplanade and you're heading to Cygnet, there is now a giveaway sign, and I know that it's there, but I know that people have been in that habit of not stopping there, having the right of way, but you must now stop because the people coming from Cygnet going along Flood Road or Flood was the Channel Highway once it's completed, now have the right of way. So just be careful and just adhere to the signs. I think the speed limit's been
instructed 40 and there are giveaway signs out, but it's hard to break old habits.
Yeah, that's right. So just be careful. And also today we received notification that we're in for a bit of a heat wave from I think it's Sunday through to Tuesday, with temperatures exceeding up into the 30s. So please be mindful. It's high fire. Tuesday we're also meant to get some northerly winds, so which isn't good when you've got that dry. But at the end of that, Wednesday morning, it will be the end of the spell of hot weather. So yeah, when do children go back to school? That's
Nice starting at school now.
yeah. So yeah, so they'll get a few more days in over the weekend. So okay. Now we're up to public question time, answers to questions taken on notice. There was no questions on notice at the December meeting, but there was some questions taken on notice. It was given on notice, and they were from Jeffrey Swan concerning managing unacceptable customer behaviour policy. Irene Gill for the General Manager's Performance Review, Catherine Temby from concerning the Ranelagh Village Green Concept Plan and for the Road Safety Report. The responses are on the website and will be included in the minutes. Okay. Questions without notice. Tonight there was 2, and the first one was from Jeffrey Swan, and it was concerning our communications and media protocol, and from Irene Gill concerning the Wombat crossings at Cygnet. So the responses are on our website and will be included in the minutes. So now we're up to public question time. If you have a question as a chair, I'll ask you to come to the lectern and identify yourself by name and area where you live. To make things fair and equitable, we have a limit of 2 questions per person, and we normally allocate 15 minutes for question time. Do I have anyone that has a question? Yes.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Almost to the end of January now.
Yeah.
My name's Liz Smith. I'm from Cygnet, and I was interested in the response to the Cygnet Town Hall Vision resolution from the AGM. It's on 17.01.25, around page 102, 103 of the agenda. And I want to refer to points 11 to 13 in particular, because I agree totally that the future of the Cygnet Town Hall should be integrated within the Cygnet structure plan. And it's really good to see that that plan has already started. My questions are about what is the time frame for consultation on the Cygnet structure plan, and what is the projected length of the project, and will the length of leases of the spaces in the town hall be considered in the context of that project, the structure plan of Cygnet and the town hall? So that's the first part.
Okay, well, would you like to? Yes.
Timing?
Yes.
So I can talk to the Cygnet structure plan. So currently we are advertising and requesting quotations from potential bidders or contractors. So that's on our website at the moment. That's due to close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 31st of January. We'll then go through an assessment of those submissions to see if there's a suitable contractor there. The timeframe for the project itself is, at this stage, is looking at to be end in August, with engagement scheduled around March, April. Well, the initial there's going to be a number of engagement touch points, but that'll be subject to when we have the inception meeting with the preferred contractor. Obviously, we need to look at what they're proposing and how that fits into the broader timeframe. In terms of the integrating the Cygnet Town Hall, it certainly is a key component of that, but the structure plan is looking at a Cygnet-wide scale. So we'll be drawing from some of the recommendations of that review, and then factoring that into what we're doing, and likewise, I'm sure what we put out or what our outcomes are in terms of that structure plan will be considered as part of the how we lease or how we utilize that space. So it'll be a two-way, I suspect, a two-way sort of relationship in how we engage across those 2 projects. But certainly we'll be talking to both project teams as we progress.
Thank you. And I just wanted to ask about budget allocations for upgrading, for upgrading, improving the town hall. When will the budget allocations for that be considered? Will that be for this coming year, or will it be put off until the end of the structure plan is complete?
We consider budget allocations for all of our assets each year through the annual budget cycle. If there's no demonstrated significant need to change anything, the standard would be to maintain and renew existing. So if we have, through the EOI process that is actually coinciding with our reaching a point where we can workshop with councillors on the hall review process, that may well identify investments that we need to make to change what we can do in that hall. So we would use that to inform the budget process. And then obviously as we go through, do structure plan, etc., we will be making investments as are needed to encourage utilisation of the valuable assets that we've got, but we certainly don't want to spend on things if we don't have a justifiable need for them.
No, I understand that. And I was very pleased to see that the importance of Town Hall will be taken into account in doing the Sigma structure plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other questions? Thank you. Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Do I have any deputations tonight? No. Petitions?
No.
Okay, well, I'd like to advise that the council is acting as a planning authority as at 6:11 p.m. In accordance with the provisions of Part 2, Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015, the council will now act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. In accordance with Regulation 25, the council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 10 on this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. It is important to be aware that your role as a councillor and as a member of a planning authority are different. The key differences relate to decision making. As a member of a council, your decisions may be swayed by community feedback, but as a member of a planning authority, your decisions must be based on the provisions of the planning scheme. The above snippet from the Good Governance Guide makes it clear the importance of wearing what we are calling it our planning hat. Report number 10.001/25, the installation of a 4 metre by 2 metre LED billboard sign DA 197/2024. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Yes, councillor.
Mayor Doyle, I'd like to move an alternative motion. And I've distributed a copy of that to all councillors and staff. If someone is willing to second that.
Do I have a seconder to? Yes. Councillor Rozek? Yes, okay, the name has been seconded.
So if I speak to that.
You can read it out. Do you want to read it out?
Would you like me to read
Yep,
the whole thing?
yep.
It is consistent with the recommendation the recommended motion up to, sorry, I need to get on the right page here, but up to, sorry, I need to probably find the page of the motion, full motion on it. So A is consistent,
Yeah.
and then clause B would read development application DA 197/2024 for a 4 metre by 2 metre illuminated billboard at 36 Main Street, Huonville, CT 104712/1 be refused under section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 on the following grounds. First point, C1.6.1 P1.1b. The proposed illuminated billboard is not compatible with the streetscape and landscape, having regard to the impact on the safe and efficient movement of vehicles and pedestrians, subclause 6B1. Second point, C1.6.1 P1.2c. The proposed illuminated billboard would contribute to visual clutter and cause loss of amenity to the surrounding area, having regard to the impact on the safe and efficient movement of vehicles and pedestrians, subclause 6B1. Third point, C1.6.2 P1, the proposed illuminated billboard is not compatible with the streetscape, having regard to H and I. And fourth dot point, C1.6.3P1, the proposed illuminated billboard is not compatible with the natural and built environment of the surrounding area, having regard to the likely impact on the operation and safety of a road, subclause D.
Okay. Do you want to speak to that? Yes, please.
This was a very complex application. And in proposing this amendment, I'm still open to hearing from fellow councillors or staff on input to make it better. I felt that the main, so there were a number of inputs, but I felt that the main reason this proposed billboard or sign would cause an issue enough to refuse the planning permit was about pedestrian and vehicle safety at that roundabout. I found myself exploring alternatives. So in what situation would we approve such a billboard at that roundabout? Because if you think about it, where are you going to put a big sign in Huonville? On the top of a shop facing the central roundabout, that's the best spot for it. That's a no-brainer place. But why does it not seem right? And I think the reason is the safety of that intersection. We've had advice from staff that it's already not the best intersection. It's potentially not safe enough. I found myself considering alternatives. So if the sign was not illuminated, or if it was not a changing display on that illuminated sign, if it was simply a sign on the front of that building saying Fred's shop, would I feel okay about that? And you know what? I probably would feel okay from a safety point of view. I think the distraction of a changing bright image to drivers and to pedestrians who are walking near that road, potentially about to cross that road, that I feel poses a safety risk. Now, I've culled lots of sub-clauses from the reasons for refusal, and that's because I want to reflect that if it were a sign of the same size but stationary, I think it possibly could be approved. And I think it's important not just to make the right decision, but to have the reasons for the decision be the best that they can be. And there might be other input that makes this proposal even better. But that's what I'm putting up. So I've deleted the non-safety reasons from the reasons for this proposed refusal.
All right, thank you, Amy. Do I have any other discussion or yes, I guess?
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Robertson's idea or suggestion to remove everything else but the safety and safe movement concerns to basically underpin our decision to refuse this is the most objective that we can make in a very subjective topic. You can see all the reasons, as you said yourself, it's the best spot in Huonville to put up such a sign. Nevertheless, it's one of the busiest spots as well, which has a lot of traffic through, and the only, you can be for the advertising or you can be against it, but I guess everybody will agree that the safety of pedestrians and drivers passing through this intersection is of interest for everybody. So I guess putting that into the foreground to underpin this decision, this refusal on grounds of safety is a brilliant idea. So I think better to point it out that it's on those grounds explicitly. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Yes.
Thanks, Mayor. I kind of agree with both of you, and obviously the intersection is a bit dodgy at the best of times. Like you kind of do just clench teeth and hope that no one's going to smack you when you go around there because people they're not the most patient, let's put it that way. But I did also wonder when I was reading this, I mean, obviously the applicant's got this building that isn't being used. I also can appreciate the fact that there might be advertising that could promote the Huon Valley you know, there may be an advantage to the Huon Valley, however, it doesn't meet the streetscape. And there is this issue with security and safety of the intersection, but I just wondered if it wasn't on the roof and it was perhaps in the building, or, you know, a lit up sort of awning, how different that would be rather than having a big billboard on the top of a corner on an intersection. So I don't know whether that's something that, so this is where I go off the tangent.
Yeah.
But we're assessing this, but how far away in the world is this idea going to be for Huonville? Like, it's just a radical idea for the Huon Valley, but in real terms, how far away is this going to be before this starts happening in the Huon Valley? Like, we put signs on the side of the road advertising roadworks when there's a lot of cluster and a lot of movement, a lot of safety things. It's not a good spot, but I'm in two minds about whether or not it should be refused because it's not in a good spot. Because if we wanted to break down safety things, Flood Road, for instance, has been problematic, and the intersection that you were just talking about, you know, there's been so many digital signs there, and 3 times I came through and 3 times it was in a different spot. But we all kind of looked and used some common sense for safety. So there's so many arguments 2 and 4. It's a really hard, I think maybe 2 or 3 years down the track, people will be putting signs on roofs in Huonville. It's not probably what we'd want to see, but I think this is where we are going with technology, and I hate technology. As we all know, it's not my favourite thing. I don't know. I just looked at it and thought, I'm just in two minds. I can see the safety aspect, but I can also see maybe the proposed benefit of being able to advertise something that we can offer to somebody else. It's just a tricky one, isn't it? Anyone else? Yep.
I agree that emphasising the safety with regard to the illuminated signs is good, but I think we should definitely include design and siting and the streetscape, because I think Huonville has really struggled to find its own sense of place and its own soul. And I had a good look the other day, yesterday actually, when I was there, and that little area around the roundabout, of all of the places in Huonville, actually does have a Huonville soul. You know, it's got some nice buildings, you know, in that little area. So I would like to see that included, the clauses that are about streetscape included. And I think it is quite different from the long main street, which has you know, a lot of signs. And I think the other point, the C1.6.3 about third-party signs, is also interesting because, you know, the Valley is very community-minded, and all of the signs on the other businesses are essentially advertising their shops, whereas this is it's quite a different thing. I think it's, you know, a sign for sale. So I'd prefer to stick with the including those clauses and not cutting them out, and I think it makes our case stronger as well.
I just want to point out, this is not the first billboard in the Huon, but it will be the first one that's illuminated. I'm aware of at least 3, but they're not illuminated, which means they don't take our attention as often. Also, there are other intersections like this that have illuminated billboards that are much busier than the one in Huonville, probably less risk. But I don't think we can take into consideration that if it was stationary, would it be approved? Because that's not the application.
Right.
My question being is the impact, the response from DSG as is, and was there a response from DSG with regards to if a set of lights was put there in the future? And where does that leave the main street of Huonville? Because if it doesn't impact the intersection now in DSG's perspective, would it still do that? Would they still have that opinion if there was a set of lights, which is the general feeling of where that intersection will end up one day?
Yeah, in all likelihood, that intersection will end up like that, possibly sooner rather than later. But there's relevant studies, etc., have to be done on pedestrian safety and traffic efficiency of Main Road Huonville, which is a discussion we've had with the minister to come down and check it out. I should say a local member. So And certainly, and I'm not going to try to remember which of the criteria we actually pointed out around traffic signals, and it was pointed out in pre-conversation to this that was one of the ones that's been struck in in Councillor Robertson's alternative motion, because we don't currently have traffic signals, so it's not something that we can consider at this point in time. But certainly the advice from DSG is that they would have concerns with that, was there traffic signals, but they're not there at the moment. What that would mean, if it was up on the building and then we attempted to put traffic signals in, it would obviously just be a hurdle in that project to make it a signalled intersection.
Okay, do I have any other? Yes, Councillor?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Robertson's proposal. I think that safety grounds is all we need at this stage, and as Councillor Robertson said, it will leave it open to further down the line somewhere if somebody wants to put an illuminating sign somewhere else, that it's not all going to be, not going to set a precedence that we're not going, you know, if we leave all those other clauses in there. So I agree with Councillor Robertson on this one.
Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Mayor, and also it hasn't been stated what exactly it's going to be used for, so we could and ah about whether or not we might get some exposure to the Huon Valley, but realistically we can't even have a conversation about that because it's just advertising. We don't actually know what the subject matter is going to be, so that shouldn't probably be taken into account either. Even though that was running through my head 5 minutes ago, I've now changed my mind.
It can't be taken into account.
No.
Yes.
I found myself wondering what it would take to be different for this sign to be approved. And thinking about the intersection, it's the roads coming in not at right angles. So because you come south down Main Street and you actually have to look further than a right angle to see back down Wilmot Road. So it's stuff like that. It's the parking that's relatively close to the intersection. If you had 50 metres without parked cars in that approach, the freer sight lines would mean that the distracting contribution of a changing illuminated billboard might be manageable for drivers approaching that. You know, if it was smaller, I did think, well, maybe could we approve the application with a clause that the sign can't change every 10 seconds, or it needs to only change every 5 minutes or something, so that the changeability of it is less distracting. But that's not the nature of the proposal.
No.
So I stepped away from that. And I'm open to advice on whether that's an alternative pathway, but it is equally it is still not the only factor, and I think the factor is that it's not an easy intersection. It might get easier once the Huon bypass is in, but then again, each year we'll have more traffic flow through it anyway. So,
I think it's a great idea in the wrong spot.
Yes, Councillor O'Neill.
I'm happy that we're focusing on safety for giving our decision, but I also understand that Councillor Gibson has a good point in that the look of the street is still important as well. So I don't know why we need to take that out completely either. So it's my view, but at the end of the day, it's the same outcome.
Could I just ask a question?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if this goes to the tribunal,
Yeah.
is it going to be detrimental to our case to include things such as streetscape and illuminated signs, compatibility with a natural and built environment? Or will each point be? I mean, I think we all agree that the safety is a priority, but I think the other things are equally valid.
The focus will be on our grounds of refusal, so it'll be focused on what we've refused based on.
So if we haven't included those, it won't be based on those.
Correct.
would it weaken our case then?
One second. Given that we're still actually operating within the same performance criteria, just a sub clause of it, we know what I'm saying?
Yes, so the provision, any appeal will be based on what the official grounds of refusal are that have come from tonight's council meeting. Bear in mind, there is also a representative who has joined who might wish to take
Correct.
a much broader approach in their appeal.
True. Yep. But yeah, strictly by ruling these out, we'll be excluding
Those arguments.
those arguments and those considerations. Yep.
I mean, Australia struggles to make decisions about aesthetics and how things feel, but I mean, here it is in performance criteria where we actually have the it written down that we can say we actually don't think it'll improve the amenity of the area. So I guess the question comes down to the councillors: do we think it improves the amenity of the area to have a big sign sitting up on the awning or not? And if it doesn't, I think we should leave those clauses in.
It depends what,
I'm just going to say I'm not going to support the amendment purely based that we have planners that are far more skilled than me, and this is incredibly complex, and they've made these recommendations to us for a reason, and to which I agree with Councillor Gibson. But I also, it's just very complex, and I support the original recommendation with those clauses as well. So, based on my limited knowledge and heavy reliance on these very fantastic staff that pull these recommendations together, because they are matched with the complexity in their explanation. So, yeah,
Okay.
that's just my personal.
sorry, and obviously we don't want to have that particular little strip turned into Las Vegas anytime soon. You know, so it would set a precedent that if this was allowed and we ignored all the grounds, like the look of the place, the safety, which is a given, you know, we could be looking at 2 metre by 4 metre billboard flashing signs realistically on places that they shouldn't be. So I think that needs to be, even though I think progress is imminent, just maybe not right now. Not too soon.
If there's no other, you've got anything closing or?
I'm happy to maintain the proposal of the pared down terms for refusal. And I note that in the supporting report around the amenity of the area, I would expect to see more specific grounds describing that amenity. So seeing the term vibe in inverted commas and the comment about rural almost to within 100 metres of the roundabout, I didn't find that those terms addressing the amenity to set a clear concrete standard for that amenity of that roundabout area, and I'd be hoping to see that in somewhere in the planning scheme, if we're going to rely on that as a character statement.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to put forward then.
It's a question of just process here.
Yep.
Do we need to foreshadow, if this motion is to not pass, to revert back to the original recommendation, because this motion was moved initially as the first one?
We'll just go back to it. Do we have to foreshadow it?
No, Mayor, you don't have to foreshadow it. What you have to do is make a clear decision. So you will have to then, if you wish to revisit it as a refusal, put up the original recommendation if this motion is lost.
Yeah.
So we do revert back to the original recommendation, even though that's been moved. That has not been moved.
It's not automatic.
If it was- if it
Somebody
was
might
not passed.
might wish to put
Okay.
an approval up, but yes, if you're looking at not supporting this motion, then the mayor would have to re-put the matter so you get a positive decision, which would then be a refusal based upon the recommendation.
Is that just when we're acting as a planning authority?
Yes.
So there's a different process when we're not. Okay, I've got it now.
Okay, you had another question, did you say?
Just with regard to what Councillor Robertson was saying, would there be a possibility of strengthening some of those character statements, or is it necessary? Or can we just?
Is it necessary? How, sorry?
Just, well, if we're talking about which one is it? See, there's so many. The design and siting of signs. C 1.6.1. I mean, we haven't gone to any sort of great lengths to justify. We just have sort of stated that it doesn't suit the amenity of the area. Is that enough, or do we have to?
So that's.
Do we have to justify it in a?
We don't feel it's necessary to at this point, and if it did go, we're talking about a tribunal space. If it went to a tribunal, then it would be a discussion, at which point we'd have an opportunity to augment that, as we would with around traffic safety. And in terms of getting any more definitive on around the amenity of the area, this is a key. One of the key items that we've discussed previously, and why we're progressing special area plans for all of our townships. And so, again, we're coming back to something we often reflect on in workshops, but now in open council, that we just don't have. We haven't invested in the strategic planning evidence, and that's what the advice you're getting from our planners when we're presented with what is a subjective scheme. Without us having really hard evidence and reports that say this is how we've defined what amenity looks like, this is our charted course for Huonville, how to give it character, etc. We have nothing very solid to hang our hat on. So it's difficult. It was no surprise to staff or the executive in bringing this. This would be a really challenging development application to assess, because it's brand new. It's a brand new scheme, and it's it really is quite subjective, and we don't have anything concrete.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put forward then that the amendment to the motion 10.001/25. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's Councillor Armstrong, Robinson, Rizak, Burgess and O'Neill. And against is Doyle, Thorpe and Gibson. So that has been passed. So, thank you, Amy. Report number 10.002/25, reorganisation of boundaries at 6 Doreen's Road, Leamington, CT 18507/1 and 185.075/2, sub 7/2024. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Gibson.
I don't want to second that.
Oh, you don't want to second that? No.
I don't want to. I was going to put an alternative motion to approve the proposal.
Right, okay.
So I'm not seconding.
No, okay.
Will you?
Well, I'm going to propose another motion, if that's...
Yep.
Well, you propose a way then.
Yeah.
I may or may not second it.
Okay, well, I actually think that this boundary adjustment should be approved. I think we've all had on table here recommendation, which reads quite...
Not that one.
You've got the different one below it.
That's right, yeah. Yep. Nice. Okay, anyway, it's been the recommendation 10.39, and it recommends that we do actually approve this boundary adjustment, and the reasons why I think we should probably go against our recommendation in our agenda is the lots in this area are very small, and I think decisions are being made from afar that don't really understand the makeup of these communities, and there are no major farming entities in that area at all. Lots are very small, and our LUDS is recommending that we support good community living where families can make a livelihood, or can grow food and have a good rural life on these blocks, and I think that's what they're most suitable for. And this is actually creating another block that can sort of live up to those expectations. Addresses our housing shortage, not the big way, but every little one helps, and our attitude to this actually helps as well. And there's no way in hell that someone's going to go into that area and buy up all these little farms and start creating an enterprise that is viable as far as farming goes.
All right, well, I need a seconder for that. You will second that? Okay. Councillor Gibson? No?
You've all,
The motion.
yeah, you've all got the motion in front of you, so, yep, so you're seconding as tabled.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
You happy with that, Matt?
yeah, and the amended motion?
You want to read it out?
Yep.
If you would, for the purpose of the public, to read that out.
You can read it out.
Yep.
Okay, recommendation 10.39, that the report on subdivision application sub 7-2024 for approval of a proposed reorganisation of boundaries between two lots at 6 Doreen's Road, Leamington, CT 185075-1 and CT 185075-2, CT 18.
They're the same. It's actually been, it's just generated twice.
Okay,
Yep.
yep, so I'll miss that one out then. Subdivision application sub 7-2024 is approved for the following reasons. 1, 26.5.2 P1, section C. The proposed reorganisation of boundaries is demonstrated within the agricultural assessment of the whole farm management report and requests for information response to provide for the sustainable commercial operation of the land. Commercial operation of the land. 2, 26.5.2 P1 FI, the agricultural assessment and whole farm management report demonstrates the proposed new vacant lot is surplus to the operation of the primary lot. And number 3, state policy on protection of agricultural land 2009 aims to protect and conserve agricultural land and establishes a conversion of agricultural land on non-agricultural should be determined through consideration of local and regional significance of that land for agricultural use. The title subject to sub 7-2024 are currently below 40 hectares minimum lot size of the rural zone, and in the local context it is considered that the fragmentation of rural land has already occurred to the extent that further commercial resource development opportunities are already significantly constrained. The land has no local or regional agricultural significance. And C, permit be granted for subdivision application sub 7-2024 for the proposed reorganisation of boundaries between two lots at 6 Doreen's Road, Leamington. CT 185075-1 and CT 185075-2 under section 57 of the Land Planning and Approvals Act 1993, subject to the following conditions.
Yep, thank you.
No, too small to read.
They are. You don't need those, do you? Just the, yeah.
Yeah, Mayor, just to state that there are 10 conditions that have been provided.
Yep. Okay. Do you wish to speak to that, or you?
No, I think we've, I've said what I need to say.
All right. Do I have any other councillors that'd like to speak on that? Yes, Councillor
I'd
Gibson.
just like to support what Dave's saying, Councillor Onion, sorry. I think the whole thing hinges on the size of land required for agricultural purposes, and the Huon is different from the north of the state. I think the current situation is that, you know, property prices are high. There's no way that you can really pay for your land through agriculture, even at 40 hectares, which is the prescribed area. So the model in the Huon is to concentrate on self-sufficiency, high value quality produce, local sales, and the only way to justify that is to live on the land yourself and have the value of that as a home and lifestyle. I think in future, with supply chains, being threatened as we saw in COVID, there's going to be, people are going to be looking for local produce and self-sufficiency. And so I did a little bit of research, and 5 hectares is adequate, even at these sort of soil types, to support 4 people. Yeah, I guess in terms of planning, the nature of the planning scheme is that it just doesn't respond to local topography and demography, and but I think that you are going to get a better result in terms of agriculture out of 2 properties, which is the goal of the zone, than we are out of the one with the funny little bit that's already there that's not very useful at all.
Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Robinson.
Land capability mapped as class 4 to 5 in Grove is zoned for agriculture because of a number of reasons, including its proximity to Mountain River with a plentiful irrigation resource, its nearby processing facilities, plenty of big orchard operators around the area, and its distance to market. Land capability 4 at the back of Limington has a different set of peripheral constraints around what that land can be used for. And looking at this dry north-facing bank without easy access to water, it's a no-brainer to me that agriculture is not the driving value for preservation through our planning scheme. So I'm comfortable with the proposed motion.
Yes, Councillor Jessup, did you?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to speak briefly in favour of the motion. And I'll just make a comment on Councillor Robinson's comment there. I think it's ill-advised for us to suggest that any other venue is driving this decision, because at the end of the day, it's still a resource land, and we do have an obligation to maintain the rural tenor of the valley. When I set up the Small Farms Expo a few years ago, I interviewed Peter Cundall, who's a well-known horticulturalist, and along with what Councillor Gibson was saying, he was very clear that a small lot can be very productive. You just need to pick what you grow on it. The Huon show this year, and there were some fluffy little white sheep with black faces that people were trying to flog for quite a few $100, if not $1,000 each. So, value is in the eye of the beholder, and a clever person can maybe not turn a fully sustainable profit on 5 hectares, but there are many farms, very large farms, who people work off farm and still do that. And I think the agricultural report, maybe I wouldn't put beef cattle on it, I might look at something else, but there was no doubt that if they can work out how to get water on that side of the river, and there's opportunities to bore and to do all sorts of things, it is no reason why it couldn't be as sustainable as the other side. So I think both are potentially sustainable, both are usable, and echoing Councillor Gibson's comments, the small lot experts of Tasmania in terms of what we do on small lots, producing extremely good food, and our own food strategy supports that. So I think this is in line with our strategic statements of the past, and good luck to them.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments on that? No? Well, if that's the case, I'll put forward the amended motion. Or do you want to close first, Dave? No? All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present, and the amended motion is carried. We don't have to do that.
Can I get just a really quick comment on that?
You-
Just-
you
just-
may.
We've had two interesting DAs tonight.
Yeah.
And an overturning of the planner's recommendation, which is not common. So I just wanted to underscore that it's uncommon, but it is actually the purpose of what you guys do here as a planning authority to consider this. And you do have the luxury as the planning authority to consider things differently than a statutory officer. So what you've effectively done here in the motion tabled demonstrates that you can make a judgment in the absence, and again, I talked about township SAPs that can look at amenity. This one, similar, urban, agricultural, whatever else, where we can make decisions around what it does mean, what that agricultural layout does look like and mean in the valley. And then we could have the statutory officers look at that and make a decision similar to what you've just made. In the absence of that, you can and have here tonight as the planning authority have looked at it and effectively made that determination that this isn't locally significant agriculture and come to a different conclusion. And that's the difference here. No one's wrong or right. And I certainly, and so will the planners, I know, appreciate the consideration you've given it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll advise that the council is no longer acting as a planning authority at 6:52 p.m. General reports. Do I have any councillors that are tabling their activities tonight? Yes. Would you like to speak to them before you hand them in? Anyone like to do that?
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't do anything exciting.
It was Christmas. Anybody else like to speak? No? Okay. 11.001/25, recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that general reports and minutes for the period 1 to the 31st of December be received and noted? Councillor Armstrong, and seconded Councillor Gibson. Do you wish to speak to this motion? Yes.
I was happy to see that everything's coming along nicely. I think we're kicking goals, and I think we're getting to where we should have been. I think the success of what we're actually achieving is better than it was 12 months ago. And I think the community are recognising the efforts too, more so with what's being put in. I'm sort of seeing more confidence on the pages than what there was before, and I don't know whether that's because of restructures or what's going on, but things are not costing as much, they're lasting longer. All in all, everything was good, I thought.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Yes. Councillor Thorpe and then Councillor Gibson.
I just have a question, and I've probably asked it before, but I just cannot recall the answer, so I'm probably going to ask again. I'm sorry, Patty, if I'm being annoying, but I noticed the HR figures. I thought it was really great that our staff turnover is considerably lower for the last 7 years, but there's just states in it 3 staff members weren't offered an exit interview. I'm just wondering why.
I think that's a misstatement. They're always offered.
Just refused.
Decline.
You didn't take them up.
Declined.
Opportunity not provided to complete exit interview.
I see what you're saying on the chart there. the wrong thing on the record because I just don't know it. We offer it. We offer it.
Pages on that.
We are on page
74 of the paper, but
this one. Just a chart.
We normally don't provide fixed term casuals with opportunities. So they're the ones that would have been the fixed term casuals.
that answers my question. I mustn't have asked it before if no one.
that one.
They, I haven't received it. So.
Do I have any other? Oh, yes, that's right, councillor Gibson, sorry.
All that just picked up along the way, the leachate pumping systems at Signet. Jason, do we have any sort of idea about timing and cost there? Or?
No, we are, well, the contractor is currently there, was there last week with our team. They're basically finalising the plans of re-establishing those, yeah, so we are, I'm going to say short weeks away from having a plan to go and to rectify those.
So they'll go into this next budget?
No, we have a provision available, and it'll just depend on the scale of work. So we'll commence at least some of it this financial year and see how we go. But as we flagged with councils before, long-term remediation of these landfills is something that we're going to have to keep making provision for, but just informed by evidence of what we need to do.
This provides at least.
Well, we need, yeah, and that's the thing, sinking bores in the right location, getting adequate testing, and with the kind of groundwater conditions we have in the Huon Valley, where there's springs everywhere, is kind of, yeah, it's an interesting project.
Thank you. I was, with the conclusion of the Mental Health and Resilience project, I was wondering how we might continue council's focus on social resilience and maintain, the staffing there. Was it be a shame to lose the ground we've gained? Not sure.
So there's two components to my response. The one is that some of the components of that project have been embedded in some of the PDs around new roles that we have in that department, but notwithstanding, we're in the consideration of budget for the next financial year, and we have a proposal in that space around what that could look like as an alternative, as a sort of a standalone proposal and the budget requirements for that. So we'll bring that to council as part of the budgeting workshops, and you can review that.
Thank you. That's great.
Do you want to come back to you, or you're right?
I thought it was really encouraging to see the strategic work underway with Huon Link Signet. Really good, as you just mentioned. Yeah, it's really excellent. Yeah, maybe I'll just see. Oh, yeah. No, I thought that's all it changed.
Yes, councillor Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. The medical services report, it's quite outstanding, the work that's being done there, with, and it looks very good, very bright future. I was just wondering, does anyone, or does council actually take into consideration the patient's needs? I'm getting a lot of feedback in the last month or so about the hours that they're open, 2 days in Geeveston, and I can see that we could end up with 3 practitioners, which doubles the amount of appointments there in the 2 days, out of the report, which is good. But most people are concerned that there's not more days that we're open. Is it possible to look at the fact that if you've got more doctors, have 2 there for 3 days and spread the time out? And my question really is, has the public ever been asked their opinion on that?
I can answer that. So I think we know that we've not asked the question, but we've certainly been given the answer that the public wants it open 5 days a week. So we understand that. We're doing our best to maximise the provision of medical services whilst also making sure that it's financially sustainable. So we have been, for a long time, running a medical service that has been subsidised by general ratepayers. So that includes people that have nothing to do ever with that service other than it's supporting their neighbours in the Huon Valley. And we're in that space, as we know, because there's a market gap, and if council withdraws from that space, it's unlikely there'll be an alternative provider in there. So it's a balance. So we absolutely understand the community's need there. We are carefully putting more service in place, and I think it's significant to double the availability there. Dover is obviously open all days of the week, so there is that opportunity for people to move down there if to go to Dover, and I know that's a drive. But we are, and this is all underpinned by a national GP crisis. It was in the headlines last week again in ABC headlines about rural GP availability. So I look at it that we're actually bucking the trend. We're getting new GPs on. We're extending contracts of existing GPs. We're turning around the financial fortune of that centre, and all of that is done to, if we can underpin the financial viability, then absolutely we can start to extend the services, and that means get back to more days a week offering it. But it's got to be financially sustainable. So hopefully, though, with the conga line of stuff, and there'll be some more announcements coming soon around doctor appointments. But hopefully we will be we'll be extending days as soon as we can, and making sure that it is financially viable. So we've certainly heard from the community, and we're doing our best.
Yes, we'll start with Councillor Jessup, then Armstrong, then Robinson. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, it's a great report, as mentioned before, Mayor, and I note the email you sent out earlier this week about the recognition of the LUDs receiving the Strategic Planning Award. So I think the Institute of Planners awarded it for planning excellence in recognition of the contribution that planners have made to enhancing communities, create livable, thriving and sustainable places. So, and I think, it's very much to when Lyle was managing the team and others, good work and good contribution for all of us. So that was nice. So moving on, there's more work to do, and I do like to see that we're getting some of the following jobs out too, and the densification, rural densification project, I think we'll do a bit more work on polishing that and thinking about that, but there's been some good chatter around the table, so that's been good. Couple of specific questions. Dover childcare wait list is down to, we've cleared that. Any idea, it wasn't particularly big as I recall, but any idea how we've cleared it? Have we created more space, or just?
I'll have to take that on notice. It is a very small site.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So, children maturing, moving on. It'll be I'm sure it'll be back up to a waiting list by the time we're rolling out to the next report.
Okay, I'll wait for your prediction then. Rag, looking at the weed study, I've been talking about ragwort, which for those of you who from a farming background would know that ragwort's a horrible thing to control and also quite fatal to grazing animals, and it's a scourge of farmers throughout Tasmania. I believe there's quite a lot growing along the Swamp Road, and the owners of the properties have been asked in the past to clear it, and they're doing a good job. So I just want to bring it to your attention, General CEO, that it's on our road verges as well, so hopefully we can crack on to that at some point.
We actually had officers up there today looking at that particular location.
Excellent, because it's too late to spray them now, I think, so they're going to have to go along and manually clip off all the seed heads.
It is too late to spray, and that location's been sprayed. I think it's the last 3 years in a row has been sprayed, and was coming down. We have had a very we've had a bumper season, so they really have bounced back. And yes, it is unfortunately too late to spray. The spray contractor hasn't got there. So yes, considering what we can do, and also considering the category of that weed and how much of a priority it is, despite the urgency for those particular landowners. Or any other landowner in the valley that's struggling with an adjoining weed coming off a roadside, it's very difficult, and we've got to apply some prioritisation to it.
And I'm like in trouble making this comment, but we're very quick, I think, to prioritise weeds like that one that Jenny used to love, the beautiful tall foxgloves, that's the one, mental loss there. So, yeah, we prioritise those when they're encroaching into reserves and things like that, but when a weed's encroaching on the farmland, it kills people's livestock, quite horrifically kills people's livestock. I just want to make sure we've got the balance of what's important. And particularly, I think, if landholders are doing their bit, like if paddocks are full of it, well, to some extent, bad luck. But I know that the owners have been doing some work to clear it up themselves, so working in partnership would be good. Just wanted to mention that one. Said I, who's got paddocks of goss, so I won't poke throw too many stones at people on weed management, but I'm trying. But the other one, I note the use of our staff around the implementation of the child safe plans, and I absolutely support the child safe legislation and the work that it's doing. I was on a committee that with the state government and peak bodies that was quite happy to say that local government will pick up all of the costs of doing all of this stuff. So I just hope that we're actually capturing that cost and that we send it back to the Minister for Local Government to say, thank you, Department of Justice, for coming up with a great strategy that makes local government implement all of the state government's responsibilities, but has not given us a brass wazoo to do that. And it's really important that we do it well. And I think if we do it poorly, that would be a horrendous outcome. But this is one where I think the state has done.
This has
done
come
us
up
over
at
time.
all
ALGAP meetings, I'm sure, but
at mayors and CEOs and whatever it might
to
be.
capture the cost, because
Yeah,
it sounds like
capture.
that's been her major youth work task, has been working with organisations to implement this. And it's a big, and I'm implementing it in my own organisation, and it's not just put a poster up and walk away from it. It's actually lots of training and development and staff work. So
How about we come back with that cost to councillors for you to consider and then decide what we want to do with it, whether we formalise a letter making it clear to Justice and the Minister. We've got a new Minister for Local Government.
I'm sure the Minister would like to know.
Sure. Yep. Bring the number back.
Thank you. Thanks, mate.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Oh, thank you, through me. Just got 3 questions and I'll try and make them really fast. They never are with me, but I'll try. So just going back to Councillor Burgess's question about the medical centres. So I understand the capacity has increased by having 3 doctors, 2 days a week, and the option of Dover is there. Why are we pushing everyone to Dover? Like, if they're open 5 days and Jeeveston's only open 2 days, would there not be the availability to have Jeeveston open 3 days and Dover opened 3 days and sort of break the doctors up a little bit? It's only because I hear the same as Councillor Burgess in regard to those 2 days are not necessarily days that people can get there. But likewise, they often can't get to Dover either because, and we've discussed this before, the transport issue.
Yeah.
I mean, does that make sense? Is that a valid question to be asking?
Yeah, absolutely. And we consider it one practice. Dover, as you know, has had a significant investment. It's a new medical centre that is better equipped to handle more patients, etc. It is a better set out for our staff. And yes, it is the centre that we're able to provide more services in on more days. So that's the decision that we've made. As we increase the numbers of doctors, then we'll start pushing back out to Jeeveston.
And I also believe too that some of it is doctor related, that they.
Providing a workspace. And it's more than just it's not just you can't just plonk a doctor into a medical practice. A doctor is supported by a team of administration, nurses, etc., who are all vitally important. We also need to make sure that we've got a minimum team size to provide a safe work environment for our team in their interactions with the public. So there's a lot of, we would love to provide full, equal access into every town. I think the progress that we've made in the last 12 months is enormous. And it has taken a long time, a lot of work. It's finally starting to pay off. As I said before, we are bucking a trend. And all I can say is we'll continue to invest into when the time is right. We'll continue to invest back into Geeveston. And I think we really just need to consider ourselves lucky in far south Tasmania that we've got 2 practices. I think we saw another one closed down 2 weeks ago. So nationally, we're not out of the woods, and I think we really need to look at yes, it's inconvenient that they're not available on any one particular day. We've got plans to address this, but we just can't wave a magic wand right now to do that.
I think the confusion or the misunderstanding, shall I say, is because when Geeveston and Dover became under the one banner, I think they thought that would actually open up a more equal opportunity as far as days were concerned. I think the general consensus, and I think the belief with my people, was that doctors would be travelling to and from surgeries rather than just primarily being at Dover. When we own Geeveston, we lease Dover. So people don't understand why we are not providing doctors in the Geeveston campus when council actually owns it, because it was done before. And I understand that thought process because it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But I still disagree that Dover is accessible, because it isn't accessible for a lot of people. And I hear this feedback, just having to go that little bit further is just not accessible for some people. So now they're having to catch buses to Hobart because there's transport that way. There isn't transport that way. So I'm really concerned that I think we are actually missing. I know that it's innovative, and I know that you're saying, and I am grateful that you're doing what you can, don't get me wrong, but I think we are missing people in between by pushing them to Dover because they just can't get there.
Nationally, especially in rural areas, Australia is failing to provide adequate primary health care. This is not a Dover and Geeveston problem.
But it has become a Dover and a Geeveston problem.
No, it's a national problem that we're experiencing down here. And we can continue to do what we're doing, and we're about to roll into having demonstrated that I think we've got out of the woods for now and demonstrated that there is actually hope, and that the work that we've been doing, the strategy we've been executing, is actually paying off. So as we go into this budget period, we can start to make some judgment calls about what further investment that we make into, if councillors would like to offer transport solutions, etc., it's got to be paid for from somewhere. So
have we explored Red Cross and Community Transport Scheme to maybe offer a day service when they do that? They're great services.
We discussed this at a Dover meeting. Andrew was there, and the car doesn't get taken, the opportunity, they left. They were in the area, that's correct, Andrew, and it was not used enough for them to stay in the area.
Maybe do we say when people ring up and say, I want an appointment on this day, we say, well, ring Community Transport.
Yes.
we also, in our medical sustainability and viability grant for the state government that we advocated for and then ultimately weren't successful in receiving, which is a head scratcher, we're looking at other opportunities. But a key part of that was to provide a home care service. So having the availability of a nurse and a vehicle to go. And that was to use that grant funding to demonstrate the viability of that model without council taking and ratepayers taking on all the risk of it. So well-founded, considered. If councillors want to take on that risk, as I say, in light of in a different financial position, given the work that we've done, and now if you look at the financial results of our medical centres, we're doing pretty damn well. So we're able to, and by well I mean breaking even. It's not a profitable concern, but we're in a very different. We have a different set of risks and opportunities as we go into this next budget season, and that's where the executive are 100% with the councillors in we want to, and medical services are such a vital provision to our community. We just need to do it sensibly, and it's not with a national GP crisis and a growing shortage of GPs. unfortunately, we're not in a position to be able to make sure that everyone can have the choice of the particular day, time, and have their transport solutions solved. There's no one in the country that has that luxury at this point in time.
And we also, when recruiting, Dover has a different lifestyle to some of the doctors that we're receiving. So we are lucky to get the amount we do. And that's where they want to be.
Yeah, I'm not disputing. I think, we're lucky to have doctors, I get that, and I totally appreciate the travelling dilemmas. But it is just difficult only having 2 days a week. So if we could, and it's very disappointing that we didn't get the grant. Like, that would have been almost too pleasant to, Okay, so I'll leave that there. But I also had a question, so this is my 1 o'clock thinking last night. I also had a question about the planning. So can we talk about the planning? Yep. So I noticed there were 7 new visitor accommodations, all bar 1 has been approved, I think. So that's a lot of visitor accommodations that council are approving. This concerns me now with the issue with homes and people not being able to have homes and tiny homes and caravans. And do we know how many visitor accommodations we have in the Huon Valley now? By any chance? I know it's an off the cuff, happy to take it on notice.
None of us are going to know it off the top of our head,
No.
but yes, we do have access to those stats.
Yeah, because we've got a lot. And I know that we don't particularly have much remit over governance of those types of things, but I'm concerned that every second person seems to be opening some sort of visitor accommodation. And I'm really concerned that our little valley is going to have more people homeless and more people struggling. And I don't know what we can do about that, and I don't have a solution, but I felt the need to be compelled to mention it. So I don't know what you want to do with that, but maybe you can have a brainstorm, or the others can have a brainstorm. And finally, Southern Training Employment Network. Southern Employment and Training Network. What is going on with that?
Can you be more specific?
Well, no, because I couldn't read anything more specific. So it just keeps popping up, like, every time we have these reports. And I keep looking for something exciting and something wonderful, like we've given these young people jobs or we've found these positions. But all I read is a lot of, we've liaised with this one and we've liaised with that one and we've teamed up and we're networking and we've done this. Are we actually giving anybody jobs? Like, is it working? Because I don't think it is. And if it's not, is this costing us anything as a council? And if it is, then why are we paying for something that I can't see any results of? But I may have missed them and I stand to be corrected.
It's that sentiment has been passed on.
Coffee's kicked in now.
Great. Just in time. That concern has been passed on before I was in this chair.
Yeah, I mentioned it before as well.
And I've certainly since joining the board, which comes with my role, I've certainly been seeking some demonstrable results. It has been slow. The other jobs hubs across the state occurred. They grew organically out of a need, whereas ours was parachuted in and sort of make this model work. And I think the key challenge, the challenge we often face in the Huon Valley, is our geographic spread. It's a hub, just as you said, on medical services, transport, getting people access to them. So it's taken time. We are a different space. I know that the team the recent recruitment that's been done, and there's now a strategy in focusing on youth employment opportunities. I expect to see more results soon, but I share your concern, and we'll just keep pressuring for
It's been 2
deliver
years.
on purpose.
2 years. And is it a 5-year grant?
5-year grant.
So that only gives us 3 years, so it's going to take likely 12 months to get something off the ground and running, which only really leaves 2 years of productivity in that space.
It's definitely off the ground and running, but the takeoff took longer than it surprised me how long it's taken to take off. And as far as the cost to council, I mean, we auspice this thing, so it is in Yorke Valley Council's name.
Yep.
And the cost is considered the in-kind support. It takes a fair bit of my time, takes time recently. We've been talking about, as part of helping it to deliver on its purpose and professionalise, support of our staff in finance, IT, those kind of things. As we're looking at those, we are though looking at to understand what the cost is and to recoup that, so that it isn't a drag on ratepayers. So it's I'd say it's small, but it's not nothing. And I want to see results for every dollar we spend.
That's good, because so do I, because I could just keep reading the same thing and I'm not really, I like to move a little bit quicker, but it's been a bit of a white elephant really, hasn't it? If we can give it a bit of a kickstart, that'd be good.
Just while we're talking about that, can I just add in one piece of feedback that I've had? Because I tried to refer someone to Jobs Hub.
So did I.
But they don't have a phone, they don't have access to the internet, and there's nowhere you can visit, and there's nowhere you can contact them physically on the website. So they're not accessible.
They do. They do.
No, the person particularly didn't have access to be able to call them up or
Right.
send them an email.
Sure.
Which apparently is quite common for people who are unemployed that need these services.
Yep.
It's just an FYI, is people can't actually access the services they're providing because there's no physical address public.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they now have that office space. Yes.
Can I add something through you, Mayor?
Yep.
That's one of the reasons why we have actually set up a hub downstairs in the front of customer service. We're just tweaking that at the moment so that we will advertise so that people can come in and use the internet and phone service. So if they don't have access in the general community, we can provide that access.
There's also the name Jobs Hub, which is commonly used, and also the name of the business, sort of implies that it's a hub for you to go in and seek support to find employment, and it's not that at the moment. Where I think it should be, but I don't know if that's what it is. Anyway, just jumping on that.
Yeah, that's good. Good feedback.
They have got an office. Upstairs. Yeah.
Mayor, I'm assuming the state government may have, although this is a certain assumption to make with the state government, may have given us some deliverables to achieve as part of this Jobs Hub grant. So maybe, because I've certainly raised issues about this in the past, so maybe in the next closed council, would it be possible maybe to look at those contract deliverables and maybe we can get some assurance that we are progressing some, if not all?
Not a problem.
Would that help?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that in the whole process, we have to be mindful that we have got the people that are employed to do their jobs.
Absolutely.
They are, yes,
It took a long time. to
yes,
get up as
I
well.
know, yeah, and there's people left, and which hasn't made it easy. We've got Councillor Robinson first, and then I'll come over to you.
3 things. First, there was a fair bit of social media correspondence earlier this month about fire fuel hazard adjacent to roadsides, and I emailed the CEO and appreciated his update, noting that we had an excellent growing season. I think we had double the average December rainfall, so grass has grown for longer than it usually does. There's still a lot of green under the vegetation in the roadsides, and that potentially we might send the mowers around to recut those roadsides if we have the resources. And noting, of course, that the best time to practice, to create or to practice your fire plan is yesterday. And in the absence of yesterday, do it today, do it now. And that's especially important when we see smoke rising over the hill. So that will be on people's minds at the moment. Do you have any more up-to-date advice for us in our community on either the fuel management side of our emergency preparedness or the more responsive side of our emergency preparedness, given the smoke going up over the hill?
You're talking about our roadside vegetation
So
management
roadside
ourselves,
management?
or emergency management and?
So
and
both roadsides?
Yep.
And then, is there anything in train or that could be in train over the coming days with regards to the Plains fire, the top of our boundary?
Yep. So with regards to roadside vegetation management, yes, it's been a strong growing season. We also missed the spray window to get our spray program delivered. And we're also still struggling with the reliability of our roadside mowers, which has been a problem that's plagued us for a little while now. We are working on alternatives for that, and as we stand at the moment, it's every year we're always going to have growth coming through, and the roadsides are as good as where they were last mowed, and everyone in the Huon Valley knows that in the last couple of months, if you're not mowing your lawn once a week, it's up to your knee, and the same thing happens on the roadside. So we can mow it, and we are looking back at areas now where they were mowed according to their normal program, and they need a mow again. But we've got hundreds of kilometres of roads and we just can't do it. So where we're at the moment is obviously is our priority roads, and we do have our 2 mowers plus a 3rd contract mower operating full time at the moment to get those roadsides knocked back. And given the results we've seen having not sprayed locations this year, and it hasn't been materially different in a lot of locations, gives us some interesting food for thought on how we can adjust our roadside vegetation management. It's not, the perfect evidence, but it's certainly been interesting where we've seen locations that have been sprayed and it's grown straight back through. So whether that's some resistance or otherwise, and we certainly want to be minimising spray wherever we can. So if it's not actually being effective, then we should cut it out because it's not cheap and it's not ideal. So that's where we're at on our roadside component at the moment. The only other comment on the fuel load reductions and fire abatement processes with private properties is in full swing. We had a really good response to the more proactive approach we took this year, where there were advanced notifications to people that we know what we've seen in previous years have needed a reminder. We did that earlier, gave that nudge, and we had a better uptake this year. That's progressing well. As always, we get complaints and requests on this every single year where neighbours want neighbours to do different things. So we prioritise those and action them as we can, but it's under control. With regards to Snug and the fire that's currently burning, while we've been sitting in this meeting, it's actually turned into I'm not sure if it's a watch and act now on Tas Alert, but there's now actually a monitor conditions for Pelverada, for residents of Pelverada, because the wind conditions are changing, and despite the water bombing that they've been doing up there, they're now expecting it to spread both north and south over the coming days as we go into hotter conditions and windier conditions. So the reminder that I'd say again that we've been promoting is to get that Tas Alerts app, set it for your location, and keep monitoring it, and have your plan as you've said. And if your plan is not to defend your property, then your plan is to get out early.
Okay.
Sorry.
Wait a minute. Yep, you've got.
Thank you. I've got a third question.
Yeah.
Yep. Third question. When you stand by the kettle watching it, waiting for it to boil and warm up, it takes forever. Any clues on how long the Port Huon pool will take to warm up and open its doors?
It's already.
We're keen.
Yeah. It's already warm, and you must have missed my radio interview on Huon FM this week, but good listening. 7th of Feb is the plan, so very soon, probably sooner than you appreciated. So all the final equipment arrived. It was finally got out of quarantine, got it installed. No hitches. The pool is warming up as we speak, and we're actually tomorrow just confirming exactly what that opening date is. And as I said, I'm expecting it to be next Friday, the 7th. So we'll communicate that, get it open, and also intending to have a free opening day on the weekend as well, to get people back through the door and see what it's all about, and enjoy it before school goes back. Hopefully, getting people.
You won't have to do that because people will be keen to get back through the door.
Councillor Photo maybe, we'll be there in our boardies.
Absolutely.
There's a few things in the pipeline, but we will keep you informed about what they are.
It's been a long. I mean, it has been there's been bumps obviously on that project, and delays and variations in any construction project aren't uncommon. This one has had its fair share, and I'm really happy with the end result, and there's certainly plenty of stuff that we can learn from this project to improve it next time. Probably the biggest lesson is to keep your assets maintained always, so they never reach the point of degradation that this one had. If we're owning an asset, we need to value it, we need to utilise it, and we need to keep it maintained appropriately, and that is the big underscoring lesson, because then you lose sight of what truly lies beneath, and then you have surprises as you start to commence a project.
We're talking about watch your pots boiling. I'll be there with bathers on.
Yeah. And you know what? We won't have to worry about infrastructure, because by the time our reign's over, we'll have fixed them all for the next lifetime of the pools and everything else. So the next lot of councillors will be. Yes,
That's been cool. Councillor Gibson, you're right. Yeah, being covered. All right. Yes.
A follow up on Councillor Robertson. I know we're doing our best for our roads. I'm not seeing a lot of work done on state roads in terms of mowing, and they have the biggest number of traffic and the biggest fire risk. And I know they're still very green, and they're obviously not wanting to mow them twice. But have we had any communications from them? And I'll just give an example. I got a call from our Jewston Fire Brigade 2 weeks ago that a pile of Gosset I'd set alight in September had relit and was flames and smoking. That was an interesting conversation with them about, well, no, I don't need a permit because I didn't light it, but can you put it out for me? And that had sat there and smouldered and obviously collapsed, and the wind had got in. And when I they put it out and I spread it out with the tractor, there were still rocks at the bottom of that pile that were hot to touch. So I'm just really worried that there are potential lurking fires out there, and main roads and cigarette butts and stuff like that. I'm really concerned about the highways and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony, sorry, you might have some comments to make.
We've actually contacted DSG a couple of times now in regards to internal complaints and external complaints. We have had minimal feedback from them on their availability to get here, as they're working in the Midlands district at the moment. When we get word back, all we can do is keep passing out complaints on. A lot of the complaints that we've actually received as council have been based on DSG roads. So it's just worming those complaints out and trying to get a good outcome from them, and a bit of a commitment back from them to come and do our.
Maybe it's a resourcing issue for them. It's hard to know. Maybe we could. Would it be Minister Abetz would be responsible for roads? Maybe.
We are.
Minister Vincent,
Yeah.
and then Minister Abetz from a local interest point of
But
view.
he's roads, isn't he?
No, he's transport. Abetz is transport.
That's right. Roads are different.
Yes, one's on.
One's on top. Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. So we are constantly
Look,
talking
Sure.
with them.
much like us, I mean, DSG run to a program, and when you get a really strong growing season, it is challenging. And like Cygnet, the road I drive every day through Cygnet, that was mowed well in October. You would have no idea that the highway was mowed in October. So normally, I mean, that time last year they did that, and they'd sprayed it back in early September. After the spray, it still needed a mow. Got mowed in October, knocked back, looked beautiful.
So what you're
It's
saying
come
is
back strongly through.
So you're saying DSG has been actually here doing their job, so it's not.
DSG provided their program, certainly in areas where I've seen it. I don't know if they've covered 100% of it, and if they had difficulties, whatever. But they've certainly been out and about delivering their program, both spray and that. But I mean, they like us need some capacity to respond to a stronger season. It's just hard to predict that and hard to manage budgets, obviously, when you get that kind of result. But the big standout, and I think key learning that we're taking forward in how we consider our roadside vegetation management in future, is that there's no matter what we do, spraying or emphasising spraying or mowing, there's a point around about now when really, if we just really go for it now, when it's kind of reaching its zenith and it's starting to slow down, that's where we should probably put the majority of our emphasis and have a bit more tolerance for that early in the season and where it's still coming through, because we literally get a week out of it, and after that it's starting to brown off and it's too high. So I think there's a level of reality we need to accept. But as I said, we're still. I'm giving you a taste of, I guess, our thinking, but there's a whole bunch of work to do to work out how we can get the best value for money from that roadside program.
Thank you, and it's good to know that we can actually let the public know that DSG has actually been trying, because there's been a bit of a black hole of.
Do you know if there were any areas they missed?
Spray wise,
or whether off their program?
No, they were pretty good this year. Yeah. So, but they're in the same boat as us too. They've only got two mowers themselves, and they've got a pretty big network to look after. But they've got more accessibility to contractors, specialised contractors too. So they have been contacted, and we are trying to get some answers out of them.
Thank you for that.
They were whippersnippering.
Yeah.
There was 8 or 9 dudes on whippersnippers, so they must be having some issues with their tractors, or they're somewhere else. But I thought, gee, that was a little bit unusual to see that many people whippersnippering the side of the road. But I think too, the point is, a lot of people say about the bushfire issue, most of my clients are just annoyed with the grass height because of the visibility aspect.
And the primary
more so than the bushfire risk.
For that roadside management is to maintain roadside visibility and also to preserve the edges of the roads and vegetation moving into it. Look, sure, it's a bushfire risk, but that's not the primary objective.
And that's what I think of when it gets long like that, because it's so easy to catch fire, but it's really just about the visibility and the animals that they can't see when they hop out in front of them, and
Guideposts can't see them.
Yeah, guideposts can't see sort of indicators, but it's sort of. I mean, the option is that you could go out and whippersnip in front of your own house. You do it safely. Let's not recommend that to the general public. Perhaps that's not a thing I should discuss at the meeting. Cut that bit out, please.
Okay, all right. We've had a good go. Is there anything else, or are you finished with the reports?
No, I'm good, thanks,
Okay,
Mayor.
so do you want to close?
No, I think I've said enough, thank you.
Right. Okay, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present, with excluding Councillor Burgess. He's left the room. Thank you. 12 councillor workshops, they're recorded down. Well,
They are, and I'll leave them as read.
Yep. Councillor questions. Answers to questions taken on notice. There was no questions taken on notice. Questions given on notice. There was no questions. Questions without notice. Councillors, are there any questions tonight without notice? Yes, Councillor Gibson.
I've got 2, if that's all right. Yeah. A resident request regarding hooning on Denison Road and Huron Bridge. They've recorded 86 events in the last year, and they've identified some of the protagonists. Is there anything more that council can do in this space? I guess is part of the question, and have we been in contact with the affected parties? Well, have they contacted us and have we got back to them, I guess?
The locals that are experiencing this kind of thing. We've been in contact over a long while with a range of residents out there. I'm not sure about the particular latest question that's been asked or whatever, but we're certainly aware of and have had lots of interactions with residents concerned about the hooning out there. It's absolutely ongoing, and it's a constant topic of collaboration with both the police and STT, but a very remote, difficult to police, resource heavy, difficult area to manage.
I guess if there's 86 reports, I mean, I haven't, obviously don't know how it went over, I see it was over a year. It must be incredibly regular.
Oh, yeah,
So,
it is, yes, go through.
Through you, Matt. We're actually been looking at the Denniston Road to trial a product called anti-hooning strips. They're a different technology that actually causes the wheels to grip and break stuff, pretty much. All right. So that's something we're looking at the moment for a trial run out there of it and see how it works, because that is one of our biggest hooning spots in the Hill Valley. So that is being looked at the moment. There has been trials done in Victoria in different places with it, and it has a good result. So yeah, we are looking at proposed treatments to give it a go.
That's very interesting. Thanks.
I mean, it's a topic that
We've been
is
talking
brought
about
up.
it for
Yeah,
years.
yeah. I know that Lockie put a lot of legwork into going around the tyre places to see to make sure that they weren't stockpiling tyres that could be got by others. At a meeting, we were told that they were bouncing them out of a caged area and still getting them out. So they will go to all lengths. I think they've even stole them off cars at the back of the police station.
And the police have no way of...
Well, they can get a car and clamp it, they just get another.
That's right.
The problem is unregistered vehicles, and it's a significantly difficult situation to deal with.
They're on social media doing it with no care of what's going to happen. Yeah.
Sorry, Mayor.
Yes.
I did just have a question, even though I said no, thank you, Mayor. I've just thought of
Oh,
something.
wait a minute, Paul's got another one.
Sorry, Paul.
Yeah,
That's all right.
yeah.
This one may be easier, I don't know. It's through you, Matt, it's local to me, so the Cygnet Coast Road, I don't know whether you've noticed, but part of the road's fallen down because of the coastal erosion. And I swim there regularly, and you can, the sea level rise has dug the whole bank out, and it's just going deeper and deeper in underneath the road. Now all the trees are about to fall over, and that'll obviously weaken that bank. It's there, it's a relatively short bit of the coast road that's being affected. My question is about mitigating the coastal erosion and whether that is a cost, it's in terms of cost, whether it's cheaper to pack some big rocks under that edge or something just to slow it down rather than waiting for the rest of the road to fall down and have to deal with it. Because
the answer is it depends.
Yeah.
So coastal erosion controls are usually a band-aid, and they push the energy elsewhere.
I'm aware.
As I know you are, but just to explain to the public. So I am aware of that issue there, and similar issues, elsewhere around the valley. So it is something that we need to have better regard for, and it's part of the reason why when we talk about our focus on climate change, for example, why it has to be so well integrated into infrastructure, and why our emphasis on climate change investment is around, among other things, managing risks and defending infrastructure. So I think that's another one that through our long-term financial planning and budget processes, we need to look at and start identifying these high-risk areas, which is part of the project for the team, what is going on with these, and start making some cost estimates for what we can do, and then prioritise what appropriate treatments would look like, because the expense will rack up quickly, but it's unavoidable.
It may be cheaper, I'm just thinking. Yep. And maybe next time somebody's there, just you need to actually jump down on the beach and look in underneath, because you can't see it from the road.
Okay. Yep.
See the trees all leaning over that.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Yes.
Sorry, Mayor. Dogs. Lots and lots and lots of comments on the Facebook and everything else about dog attacks. Council not doing anything about road dogs. A particularly vicious attacking with dog that killed a Paddy Melon in front of people in public area. That was, with caution. I'm not sure what council can do or can't do. But there's a lot of dogs running around, and there's a lot of dogs that are not friendly dogs that are running around. There's a lot of puppies that are not contained by people, that people may misdiagnose as being aggressive, being energetic, but they still shouldn't be uncontained and not jumping on people.
You know what, less people, and I know that social media is a great one for it, but unless they actually ring and report
Well,
it.
this is what I did say to them. Like, it's very difficult to do anything without, but I have assured people that once council is aware of a situation, they do indeed follow it up. I know they do, because I know people that they have followed it up with.
Did you see in the
So not to discuss now, but you will see in the closed reports, there's a compliance report where we've got an opportunity to talk about some of the statistics on our dog management efforts. So we're certainly not doing nothing. We are acting according to our powers under the Dog Control Act. So to quickly sort of run through, our dog management policy is up for review. It certainly needs improvement. Beyond the dog management policy, which really has to be how we give effect to the Dog Control Act, we need to really emphasise education for owners, but also education for the general public on how to help us in making a complaint. A complaint to Facebook is worthless, and we need evidence on which to act. So we're just as concerned by some of the reports that we see, and we follow reports up to the extent that's possible. And the extent of our enforcement is limited by the proof. It's like any other investigation.
I did sort of say this to people. It's hard to follow up with something when you don't actually know what you're looking for.
It is, but it shouldn't fall to councillors to have to field those kind of questions. So we will be improving how that education is provided through our website content, and reshaping that so that it's more clear, and running some communication piece when we do that policy upgrade to re-energise, I guess, that two streams of education. And the other component is, the recently employed municipal inspector role is making a difference. It's an area that's been under-resourced for several years now. So we now have one officer that's available in that space, and I'm sure some would argue that we need more, and that's a consideration that we can have as well.
I mean, I don't want anything to happen to dogs ever, because I'm an animal lover. But I have noticed it seems to be the same dogs. There's a bit of a repetitive thing with the same dogs being out constantly. They're on the road. You know, I came across a couple strolling down the road the other day. I couldn't fit them in the car, you know, but I know who they belong to, and it's constantly on Facebook. Oh, they're home now, they're home now. But they have killed things along the way. It is the same dogs, and it's the same at Cygnet. It tends to be the same dogs all the time. And I get the frustration from people because they shouldn't have to have their chickens and everything killed by dogs, even though they're human friendly. So I think it's productive that at least we have a dog management personnel. I think that hopefully will bring some peace to people to know that council are not doing nothing. You know, but people also need to just be mindful of when they're walking towards dogs. If they're elderly, perhaps that's not a path they might want to go a different path, perhaps where there's not dogs. You know, because they do jump on you and they do get a bit unbalanced, and they shouldn't have to, I know. But I think we all need to be mindful where we're walking and what we can't. Like if I came across a snake, I'd have a heart attack, you know. So, but yes, I just wanted to bring it up because it's been a really big discussion point and almost an argument point when I have said, you know, council do not do nothing. And I know they don't because I know people that have had council speak to them about their dogs. So it's good to hear there will be some, and the dog safety too. Sorry, they could get run over, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And it was literally one of the first discussions we had in the first week back was focused on what we were up to with this dog management piece.
Which is good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
We, on this topic, I've just looked up here, I believe there's a Dog Welfare Act review. Is that our powers, CEO? Is that under that, or is there a specifically different dog act that we operate under?
Through you, Mayor, the animal welfare regulations are administered by the RSPCA. Council is responsible for administration and implementation of the Dog Control Act 2000.
And it's the Dog Welfare Act that they're reviewing, I think.
Like the animal welfare dog regulations or something like that.
Dog Welfare Review Public Consultation Form, yeah. But maybe that's where you can direct people to make a comment about stray dogs on the road.
I did sort of say to them that it would be best if they contacted.
Yeah.
But yes, I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions? No? Okay. There's no motions? Notices of motions tonight? No. 14. Reports, Neil? Yep. All right. Report number 15.001/25, Annual General Meeting, Resolution, Annual General Meeting, Advertising. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Brezek and Councillor Thorpe. Do you wish to speak to this one? It's really receiving and
No, I think it's a really good motion that has been brought forward because it basically the reason why it was put forward was that it seems like the AGM is not well enough advertised, and as well as we found out that people are not quite aware of what the requirements are to be eligible to be voting at the AGM or not. So I think making this a little bit more open to the public, explaining the background and making this accessible prior to the AGM so that people can, get an idea what's happening, why it's happening, and who's invited to the party. I think that's a great idea. So, happy for this to be pursued.
Lovely, thank you. All right.
I have one comment.
Yes.
I just have one comment because I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I actually don't think there's much more we can do in terms of the avenues of advertising. I just want to be very clear. I don't think there's much more we can do, maybe the way we deliver it. But I did have an idea.
Yep.
Just this morning when I was trying to work out when Recycling Week was at home, can we not include it on those calendars that we send out annually? Just put in there, there's our AGM. Because I look at it quite frequently. It sits on the fridge. That's just my idea.
And what happens if you don't have garbage collection?
Well, you're not included in that aspect.
Thank you, Toby.
We've actually, we were having
Up at the transfer station.
we were having a discussion today, and one of Patty's projects that she wants to get over the line is to have in our centres, medical centres, the waste transfer station, childcare centres, some screens that can actually provide some advertising of what's coming up and what's happening there. There are areas where we have a lot of interaction downstairs as well. It's not an uncommon thing. People waiting in a waiting room, if there's a rotating screen about what's coming up, when the Porting Hill pool's going to open, what's going with the AGM. So that's something that is near and dear to Paddy's heart, and is under discussion with IT to make that happen as well. So there's lots of ways we can get the word out. And yeah, as is said here, yes, advertising is already, I think, is maxed out. It's just being smarter with it.
We could put one in the pools.
Okay, so
They can watch the advertising when they're swimming. So lots of people go, no, but they do. People go to places like that.
do you have any closing on that one?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
You're fine? Okay, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Report number 15.002/25, review of the audit panel charter. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Thorpe and Councillor Armstrong. Wish to speak to this?
No, nothing from me on this one.
Do I have? Yes, councillor Jessup?
Yeah, at one stage, I wondered if we should make sure the two external members are on a sort of set term that rotates it asynchronously. So is that sort of in the charter?
Through you, Mayor, that has been done by the previous extension of the current members. So one member will be retiring 30 June this year, so we'll be calling for expressions of interest replacement of that position. The other independent member will be retiring 30 June the following year.
So should that be in the charter around membership that in some wording?
Through Mary, it can be, but it's not necessary based upon your appointment cycle. You can appoint for the period of time necessary. A future council may have a different opinion on that.
I think with clarification, staggering it.
Well,
I mean, that was the conversation when the appointment motion come to council that we already had too, so.
But what you're saying.
But it's not
general,
formally in there.
It doesn't need to be formally in there. Yeah, and I suppose it doesn't need to be, but
All right. Do I have any other questions on that? No? Toby, do you want to close? No? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. Report number 15.003/25, lease renewal of the Signet Medical Centre. I refer councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Gibson. You wish to speak to that, Councillor Thorpe?
No, I think it's quite fair.
All right. Do I have any other questions on this one? No? Okay. You don't wish to close? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Report number 15.004/25, Yawn Valley Community Awards Assessment Panel. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please? Councillor Gibson, Councillor Jessup and Councillor Gibson. Councillor Jessup, do you wish to speak?
no, I don't have anything in particular to say. I think it's quite a clear report.
Do I have any other?
Just to say that I think it's looks like a good, robust methodology. It's good.
Okay. So anything to finish with that one, Jessel?
No, but look, probably the only slight concern is with councillors on how we manage the conflict of interest. So people have to be particularly aware of, because we're active in community groups and communities, and but yeah, that will no doubt will be an opening talk from the CEO about managing our conflicts of interest or something like that. So, but that's the only concern I have about the model. But I think it's a more robust and transparent panel to do that. So, thanks, Maria.
Thank you. All right, if there's no other questions, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It's all councillors, the motion is carried.
Mayor, we now have to go to the appointment of the councillors, which I have to create a form if there is more than two candidates.
Okay.
So a call for nomination.
Okay. I call for nominations. Who'd like to put their hand up for the assessment panel? Pardon?
Again, I wouldn't
I
mind.
nominate
I'm
Councillor
okay.
Burgess.
Andrew?
How
Councillor
much
Burgess?
notice would you get before these things happen?
I don't know.
Probably
I've got
not
no
me then,
idea.
because I need a bit of notice.
Just said I can't do
Councillor
any more this year.
Jose?
I sort of need a month or two's notice.
Oh, yes, councillor Robertson?
We have an election.
Mayor, you will have to give me perhaps a 5-minute adjournment if that please.
Is it a camera off adjournment? Yes. We're going to have an adjournment. Can we please stop the live feed, please? We'll be back in a moment, guys. Sorry.
So we have Councillors Burgess, Brosek and
Significant.
Wait a minute. Wait. Okay. Thank you. So now I'll pass over to the Director.
Thank you, Mayor. So the ballot is for Councillors Burgess, Mrozek and Robertson. Ballot papers have been forwarded electronically to councillors for completion. I ask councillors to now complete the ballot paper. I have 4 responses, waiting on 5.
I can't find mine.
Do I need to save my response or once I submit it, it's fine?
Once you submit, that's fine.
Where is it, Toby?
If you're at the top of your
You're down here at the moment, just pull that all the way up to the top.
Here's my tech savvy thing kicking in people at home.
and then refresh there.
Over here. My mute is not working. Here, you take over.
You vote for me.
I'm not special, I haven't got one.
No, you do not have one.
I do not have one.
You've been blocked.
Nothing like being ignored, is there?
Watch, because you'll get
Is
one.
your internet connection on? Because mine interrupted previously, which could hold up the.
Your little thing at the bottom is on.
Thing is on.
We close it, reopen.
Did she get,
How do I do
did you
that?
get another?
Down there?
Just don't vote twice.
I can't even vote once, so we're good.
Okay, take your little thing up to the top.
Ooh, hello, how do I get that out of the way?
You just click somewhere.
You got. Oh, you're doing something funny where your new emails are at the bottom
I
of
didn't
the
put
list,
them there.
not at the top of the list.
How do I didn't do that.
Moving on.
You're gonna fix
Click
that for me
start.
next time.
I don't know how to hear and do
Has
that.
everyone voted and went, it's gone again? This is like this is like live TV, isn't it? Thank you very
Next
much.
to by date is a little arrow pointing up or pointing down. If you click
Yeah,
this
just
one,
let her vote though first before we complicate.
It doesn't matter where it points with me, it's just like, oh my God.
Yes, just let her vote.
Now, hang on,
You got to think about this.
I've
now,
got to
it's
read the
important, right?
instructions.
And to be fair, there's a new Outlook. It all looks different.
I'm done.
First, yep, got that.
Just have a
That was hard.
Piece of paper might be
Paper and a hat next time.
I'm much better at real interaction. Oh, gosh. Thanks, Toby.
You didn't think this job would be so entertaining, did you, CEO?
That was in the days before they'd met me though, wasn't it? I have absolutely no preconceptions. Everyone knows I'm useless with technology. I do try.
I don't know how you've done that to your mailbox, but
I don't either.
Yeah, Office actually asked me some dumb questions recently. It was, I had to sign back in or something, so it must be IT
Maybe
security.
it's an upgrade or something.
Through you, Mayor, the results are Councillor Burgess, 20 votes, Councillor Mrozek, 23 votes, Councillor Robertson, 12 votes. Councillors Burgess and Mrozek are declared elected.
Oh, congratulations, gents.
Congratulations. Okay, that's the end of that motion. Okay. Report number 16.001/25, Finance Reports December 2024. I'll refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Armstrong, seconder. Councillor Burgess. Councillor Armstrong,
Oh, thanks, Mayor.
fine.
Yes, thank you.
Do I have any questions? Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Mayor, I note that we're basically $177,000 better off, so well done team for that. And I've just read though on page 271 of the report that the reason for being up was about $500,000 worth of additional revenue, so additional federal grant, medical centre beds, blah, blah, blah. And we've offset that by a little bit of money, but it would suggest that we're probably overspending in some other areas. Is that right? Because it looks like we've got a lot more revenue than we've got surplus.
Do I pass that through?
She's itching to answer it, I can see.
I was expecting you just to jump in.
Oh, sorry. Through you, Mayor. You'll see that they're offset by a reassessment of the planning fees.
Yep.
So we've had a good look at those and based at this time, 31st December, that they're not going to meet where we're expecting at 30 June, but obviously that changes because it is very much demand driven, and depending on what sort of planning fees that come through, we'll see a variation in that. And also the waste management forecast. Again, you know, when we first set the budget, we think that it's going to come a certain way, and again, you know, there's demand-driven aspects of that. I'm not sure whether Lyle would like to add anything more in terms of the planning fee forecast.
So on the planning fee forecast, it's when the budget was put together, we were operating under the interim scheme, and there are differences in terms of how things are considered from a permitted, discretionary, no permit or exempts perspective, and that obviously changes in terms of the different fees that are charged for the different application types. So that's having an impact, but we're still exploring why, you know, some of the other reasons why we're seeing a reduction in those fees, because the actual number of applications has not changed significantly. So it has to be something in the category.
More discretion, less discretionary.
Less discretionary, more permitted.
And with the waste, that's 180,000 up. Is that a revenue or a cost side issue?
That's a revenue side. So again, it's how we forecast, and again, we revise it quite often. So it could be in 3 months' time that we see a different sort of change or profile, and so this is again a bit of that worst case scenario as to where we might pitch up. So we're just highlighting it that it is going down at the moment, but because it is a bit demand driven, that we've got that sort of function as to where it's going to be placed, still pitch up at 30 June.
So hopefully that's not because, hopefully that's because we're charging less for waste under our new weight scheme, and hopefully it doesn't mean that we're getting less waste sent through and more waste dumped in the bush, hopefully.
Look,
but that would be a question on notice maybe to look at.
It's a combination, and what we've done is given I think a precautionary signal.
Yeah.
We're looking at it more, and what we're definitely finding is we are receiving less volume of waste, but we have been for several years, and that is actually the intent of the waste levy. That's what we're trying to do. The question of where is it meaningfully being reduced, or is it going in the bush, is a difficult one, but one that we do need to consider. But ultimately, we're also, as you know, with the introduction of the weighbridge, which is still consistently showing for the majority of people is a more cost-effective solution for them, which is what we expected. And obviously, some with heavy weights, it's costing more. But that weighbridge is giving us the data that we've never had before, which actually is giving us rich detail, but we're only a few months in. So with the evidence we've got available to us, we've made this prediction, and I expect that we'll update that with far more accuracy in the next round when we've got a few more months under our belt.
With the container deposit scheme coming in on the 1st of July, maybe that will impact next year's forecasts.
Look, we've got, sorry, I should also give a shout out to I think we've done it already, but we had 1,300 plus responses, 1,335 responses to the Wheelie Bin survey, which was fantastic engagement. So the detail that we've got around community expectation, willingness to participate in those type of schemes, willingness to pay is all fantastic. There's a lot of data that we're still analysing, plus the data that we're getting from the weighbridge, which not only tells us what happens at that weighbridge, but also transshipments from Cygnet and Dover, where the volumes are coming from. So we're going into this next budget cycle, a far stronger position to really accurately predict what is
Cost.
going on. Yeah.
But a good result overall, Beth, anyway.
Yeah, but yes, with swings and roundabouts that are sort of evening themselves out. So.
Okay. No other? You want to close? No? There's no other? I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Report number 16.002/25, annual general meeting resolution, differential rating. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Rozak and seconder Councillor Gibson. Would you like to speak to this one?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think that it's worthwhile to consider Alan Kwambi's motion and just see where it can make a difference in applying differential rating. Where I'm heading with that, or an idea that was born out of the motion put at the AGM, and then just thinking about it and talking to people about it, was if differential rating in some occasions could even be applied as an incentivizer to achieve certain development in particular zones. So, for example, if somebody owns an agricultural property but it's not developing at all, it's just sitting there dormant, it would be unfair to say this property deserves a reduction of rates due to its nature being agricultural land, because nothing is actually happening on this agricultural land. But if somebody owns this, buys this property, owns this property, and invests in infrastructure that actually improves agricultural operation, maybe even supported by a whole management or whole farm management plan, as we've seen in the previous DA tonight. This would be maybe under review, something that could be a ground for applying actually differential rates or lower rate for agricultural operations, because they actually hold a wider benefit or bigger benefit for the wider community. Say there's local fruit production and it goes into our local markets, why should this not be incentivized and rewarded by applying differential rates? Similar things could happen in other zoning applications. It would be to determine how this is actually really applied, but I think it could be a mechanism that could help to steer or incentivize certain development if it actually really is required in certain zoning. So yeah, from that point of view and in general, I think it's a good idea to review how we structure our rates, or how we on which basis we base them on, as those three models, just to review it and see if it can make a difference.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Gibson and then Councillor Burgess.
I was just wondering, on the basis of what Councillor Mrozek was saying, whether we should have a workshop to discuss it, or whether that would be as a part of the ongoing rates review anyway.
It's part of the ongoing rates review, and that's sorry.
We'd include this.
Yeah, that's right. Those comments absolutely. We'll take them on notice and provide advice and consider accordingly. So yeah.
Councillor Burgess.
Yeah. Through you, Mayor. Last year when we voted on, I think back in June, I think it was mentioned, I might have mentioned the differential between commercial and private, the differences paid at the moment. I'm just worrying, is that going to be in the review this year for discussion? Whether we're going to try and do away with that differential?
Well, I suppose that the ones of things that will be discussed at the workshop. I can't really.
Yeah, I think what we really need in that at the point in the rates review, where we really need to understand the strategic intent that we want to achieve through these things. So if we're using it if we want to consider this as a way of incentivising outcomes or stimulating business investment, we actually need to determine what that strategy is, and then apply ourselves to affecting that through a rates review. So that's the direction.
Sorry.
Just gonna have it on that side.
Are you happy? Yep.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Any other?
That side.
No.
Was there anything you wanted to add to that? Sorry.
only through you, Mayor, that these are all aspects of the rates review that's coming through. We've used a lot of data, obviously, in terms of the commercial aspect that Councillor Burgess is talking about, and we'll bring all those to that workshop in February. I just want to reiterate what Lockie has said in relation to having a strategy behind differential rating. There's so many aspects of differential rating that needs to be taken into account, particularly around equity, and so that's something that we need to be very, very mindful of, is around that equitable distribution and recoupment of rates across the Eastern Valley in totality. So yeah, that's just something that's part of it, and decisions need to be made. And we've also done comparisons with other councils, and we are slightly different in terms of quite a few of the other councils that do have differential rating, in that the majority, and this will come through in that rates review workshop and statistics, is we have a very different demographic between residential, primary production, commercial and industrial. So it's been quite an interesting exercise.
Thank you. All right, so no other, you don't need to close? Yep. No? Okay. Well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, less Councillor Armstrong, who's out at the moment. Okay, report number 17.001/25, Annual General Meeting Resolution, Cygnet Town Hall Vision. Do I have a councillor? I'll refer the councillors to recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Gibson. Councillor O'Neill, do you wish to speak to this?
Oh, no, I think it's good timing that we're actually looking at the whole layout of the town and how we're planning and that sort of thing. So it fits neatly into that bucket, and it's something we need to utilise a lot more. It's not used efficiently enough.
Well done. Thank you. Do I have any other?
Just adding in the halls reviews, also good timing for discussion on this.
Okay. So no other comments on that? You don't need to say any more, Dave? All right. Well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, less Councillor Armstrong. Report numbers 18.001/25, Annual General Meeting Resolution, Tiny Homes. I refer the councillors for recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Thorpe, and a seconder, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Thorpe?
I only just have one comment, I think, and it's just a comment to whether the CEO or the Mayor, whoever's sending this letter to the Minister, I'd really like to make sure we emphasise that this significant issue raised by community members, including the AGM, just as a sense of it's not just council complaining, it's actually a representation of community. So just wanted to make that comment.
Do I have any other? Yes. Councillor Jessup?
Do we have any idea that the toilet issue seems to be just quite bizarre? Have we engaged with CROSS in any way to understand why composting toilets are not allowed? Is there?
So yes, we have engaged with CBOS, and
what's the answer?
Their answer is, and again, I'm not an expert on composting toilets, but the answer to me at the time was that the composting toilet needs a irrigation system to manage any overflow from that composting toilet. So an AWTS system is needed, and therefore that needs to be assessed under the Act in a particular way that didn't allow for it to be considered as part of a tiny home, given the class of building. So it's very complex, but effectively, and then there's those standalone composting toilets that they don't seem to recognise. It's sort of outlined in their explanatory note that they've recently released. But I think there's better ways, and there's examples in other states where these things can be considered, and it needs amendment of some of the codes and some of the regulations related to that we better consider them. So that's the angle we're taking, is that we need to regulate these things because we've seen examples of where they've had significant negative impacts on the environment, on others. But I think there's more contemporary ways we can regulate them.
So we're, and that, I'm assuming LGAT is supporting that discussion.
Yeah.
So in 3 or 4 years, we should get an answer back from CBOS.
No, we are, I've even got another meeting with CBOS next week, actually. So we're actively engaging them on a range of matters, and this is one of them. Because like Councillor Thorpe has said, this is a critical issue, and it's been raised by the community, so we need to continue to put the pressure on them.
And houses on wheels are becoming more common and more affordable, I think, compared to built houses. So it's not a problem that's going to go away for CBOS.
No.
Thanks.
Yes, Councillor.
I'd just like to say that reading through all of the action that council has already taken was really good to see how much work has been done, that we're supporting it and trying to navigate a way through.
Big thank you.
Okay, so you got anything to close, Councillor Thorpe? No? Okay, there's no other things. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. Report number 18-002/25, Annual General Meeting Resolution, Circular Economy. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor, I wasn't sure who was up first.
Ladies first.
Okay, all right. Councillor Robinson and Councillor Rozek, thank you for that. You wish to speak to this, Councillor Robinson?
I'm comfortable with the recommendation and note significant recognition and consideration of circular economy issues in the comprehensive strategic and operational planning process that Council's working on. It's a lot better than it was and is continuing to improve.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions?
So the motion specifically talks about seeking some grant funding to sort of further kick this along, basically. Do we know of any grants? And I'm assuming Malcolm, whose surname I keep forgetting, so I'll just refer to him as Malcolm X. I'm assuming that Malcolm's area would be very switched on to looking for grants of this nature anyway.
Yeah, we're reasonably well coordinated at the moment in terms of just monitoring for all incoming grant opportunities, and we're improving that at the moment. So there is one centralised thing which includes an ability for the executive to quickly demarcate and assign accountability responsibility for going for them, and why it might align with this. Effectively, does this align with the strategy? Is it something we want to go to? Is there going to be an impost on ratepayers if we get this thing? Because as we've said before, there's no such thing as free money. So if a grant came up that fit with this, given that circular economy principles are already in part of a wider strategy, I think we'd be first looking at how can we use those to fund what we're already doing. But if it became, an opportunity to, for a standalone, review as specifically as what's been asked for, then yeah, it wouldn't be that wouldn't be the kind of thing that would have an ongoing depreciation cost or anything like that. It'd be a straight up operational grant. Do it.
So in other words, what we're saying is we're already setting aside staff resources to look for grant opportunities that, if they fit our strategy. So we're sort of doing what the motion's asking for anyway. And as I said, I think that team would be zealots is probably too strong a word, but if they saw something that would promote it, I think they would jump onto it pretty quickly.
That's the thing. Just to reinforce, grant opportunities now are scanned against how can we put these to good effect against our strategy, as opposed to let's just chase an opportunity because it presents itself and then potentially have all sorts of financial consequences, as well as take staff away from delivery of the annual plan, long-term vision.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't have any other, you don't need to close, Councillor Robinson? Okay, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Okay. 19.001/25, we're about to move into closed council, so I'd like to thank those in the gallery tonight for attending and those watching at home.
Thank you everyone for all your work.
No worries. Thank you for coming. The recommendation is that the meeting now be closed to the public at
8:34 p.m.
pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedures Regulations to discuss the following matters. Do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into closed? Councillor Gibson and Councillor, I don't need any more. Do I have, yes I do, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. I advise that in accordance with Huon Valley Council's audio recording and council meeting policy, recording of the open session of the meeting ceased at
8:35 p.m.